The sky was never meant to bleed. Yet above the ritual circle, the blood moon burned like an open wound, painting the snow in crimson shadows. The wind sliced through Astrid's cloak, carrying the scent of smoke and iron, while the clan gathered in a silent ring around her. She knelt at the center, alone. Cold stone pressed into her knees, where ancient runes pulsed faintly beneath her skin. Those symbols were meant to welcome her spirit wolf, to bind her to the clan forever. Nothing answered. The elder raised his rune-carved staff, voice echoing across the clearing. "Astrid Ulfheden, awaken your bond." Her breath trembled. She closed her eyes, reaching inward, searching for the ancestral fire every warrior carried. Only emptiness stared back. Seconds stretched. Whispers crawled through the crowd. She has no spirit. A hollow bloodline. Astrid's chest tightened. Shame burned hotter than the freezing air. She tried again, forcing her will into the ritual, begging for even a flicker of power. Silence. The elder lowered his staff. "The bond has failed," he declared. "You stand rejected by spirit and clan." The words struck like a hammer. Gasps rippled outward. Faces she had trusted now turned away, hard and distant. A warrior spat into the snow near her feet. "Exile her." Astrid rose unsteadily, every movement heavy with humiliation. As she crossed the boundary of the circle, the torches flickered violently. The ground pulsed. She froze. A deep vibration rolled through her bones, slow and alive. Silver light crawled beneath her skin, tracing patterns she had never seen. Her hands shook as glowing runes surfaced like waking stars. The air thickened. Shadows twisted around her form, lupine silhouettes circling, eyes gleaming with ancient awareness. The clan stumbled back in fear. The elder whispered, "Impossible." Astrid felt it bend. Not fear, recognition. Something vast and old unfurled inside her chest, breathing with her heartbeat. The wind howled, and a distant howl answered, deep, commanding. From the tree line, a figure emerged, tall, wrapped in dark pelts, presence heavier than the night itself. Ragnar Blackmane, alpha of the Fenrir clan. Silence fell like snowfall. His gaze locked onto Astrid, unwavering. He stepped forward, each movement deliberate. The spectral wolves circling her lowered their heads as he approached. Not submission, respect. Ragnar studied the glowing runes across her arms. A slow, knowing smile touched his lips. "You call her empty," he said, voice low and resonant, "yet you failed to see what sleeps beneath your fear." The elder tried to protest, but Ragnar raised a hand. The clearing obeyed. "This power," he continued, eyes still on Astrid, "is older than your rituals, older than your judgment." He extended his hand toward her. An invitation. Astrid hesitated only a breath. The energy within her pulsed, urging trust. When her fingers touched his, light erupted. A thunderous howl shook the sky. Silver fire spiraled upward, then settled into her skin like living ink. The shadows calmed, circling once before fading into her heartbeat. The clan stared in stunned silence. Ragnar tightened his grip, steady and protective. "She is not rejected. She is claimed." The words echoed with primal certainty. Astrid inhaled, warmth spreading through her chest for the first time that night. The weight of shame dissolved, replaced by something fierce and undeniable. Purpose. Ragnar turned toward the dark forest, guiding her beside him. "Come," he said quietly, "your place was never behind their fear." Together they stepped beyond the circle, not as exile, but as awakening. Behind them, the clan stood frozen, watching legend walk into the night and realizing too late what they had cast aside. The forest did not welcome them. It watched. Snow muffled their footsteps as Ragnar guided Astradir through the frozen pines, moonlight bleeding silver between the branches. Every breath she took crystallized in the air, yet heat pulsed beneath her skin, the living runes glowing faintly along her arms. They were still there, still awake, and so was something else. Astradir felt it stalking her thoughts, circling like a predator just beyond sight. The sensation made her pulse quicken. "Do you feel them?" Ragnar asked without turning. Her voice came out quiet. "Yes, like they're waiting." "They are," he said. "The frost wolves don't awaken without purpose." A distant howl split the silence. Astradir stopped. The sound wasn't carried by wind, it vibrated through her chest. Her heart answered with a sharp, painful beat, and the runes flared brighter. Ragnar turned then, eyes narrowing. "Steady," he warned. "Don't fight it." "I'm not," she gasped. The snow around her boots cracked. Silver light leaked into the ground like veins spreading through ice. Her breath grew ragged as visions flashed. Endless tundra, spectral wolves running beneath a shattered sky, their eyes burning with ancient hunger. Fear clawed at her ribs. "They're inside me," she whispered. Ragnar stepped close, his presence solid against the chaos. His hands closed around her wrists, grounding, warm. "Listen to my voice," he said. The world tilted. The wolves surged. Astradir cried out as her knees buckled, but Ragnar held her upright. The runes pulsed violently, shadows peeling away from her body to form ghostly shapes in the air. Lupine figures emerged, massive, translucent, their fur shimmering like frozen starlight. They circled her, judging. Her breath hitched. Instinct screamed to run. Ragnar's grip tightened. "Stand," he commanded softly. "They respect strength, not fear." The wolves drew closer. Astradir felt their thoughts brush against hers. Cold, ancient, curious. They were not monsters. They were memory. Her fear shifted. Instead of resisting, she opened herself to the pulse in her chest. The runes responded, glowing steady instead of wild. The wolves slowed. One stepped forward, larger than the rest, its eyes locked with hers. And she understood. Not words, truth. "You carry us." The realization struck like lightning. The wolves were not invading her, they were returning home. Astradir exhaled. The fear melted into fierce calm. "I am not your cage," she whispered. "I am your voice." The spectral wolf lowered its head. The others followed. The forest fell silent. Light folded inward, the wolves dissolving into her skin like frost sinking into water. The runes dimmed to a steady glow, warm and alive. Astradir swayed. Ragnar caught her easily. For a moment, neither spoke. The air hummed with the echo of power settling into balance. "You didn't lose control," he said quietly. "I almost did," she breathed. "But you didn't." His gaze searched hers, not evaluating, but proud in a way that tightened her chest unexpectedly. "You accepted them," he continued. "That's what makes you dangerous and rare." Astradir swallowed. "They felt like family." "They are," Ragnar replied, "older than blood." The wind returned, softer now. Snow drifted lazily through the clearing, as if the forest itself exhaled. Astradir flexed her fingers. The runes shimmered in response, calm and obedient. For the first time since the ritual, the power didn't feel like a storm threatening to break her apart. It felt aligned. Ragnar released her wrists slowly, his touch lingering just long enough to send warmth racing up her arms. "The wolves chose you," he said. "That means the north will test you." Her pulse quickened. "Let it." A corner of his mouth lifted, approval edged with something darker. "Careful," he murmured. "Confidence draws enemies faster than fear." Astradir met his gaze, steady despite the lingering tremor in her body. "Then they'll learn," she said softly. "I'm not prey." The forest seemed to listen. Somewhere far beyond the trees, another howl echoed, not a challenge this time, but recognition. Ragnar turned toward the sound, shoulders squaring. "They know," he said. Astradir stepped beside him, warmth thrumming in her chest. "Good," she answered. The wolves were awake, and so was she. Dawn came sharp and colorless. The Fenrir training grounds stretched beneath a pale sky, ringed by standing stones carved with wolf sigils older than memory. Frost coated every surface, turning the earth brittle beneath Astradir's boots as warriors gathered in a wide circle. They weren't welcoming, they were judging. Low murmurs rippled through the pack as she stepped into the ring beside Ragnar. His presence was a wall at her shoulder, silent, unyielding. "She carries spirit," one warrior muttered, "but spirit isn't strength." Another spit into the snow. "Let her prove it." Ragnar's voice cut through the air. "She will." Astradir felt every gaze settle on her. Her pulse drummed steady, runes glowing faintly beneath her skin like embers waiting for breath. Across the ring, iron gates groaned open. Something massive moved inside. The smell hit first. Cold fur, old blood, winter rot. Then the beast stepped into the light. A frost warg, twice the size of a normal wolf, its hide plated in ice-crusted scars, breath steaming in heavy bursts. Its eyes glowed pale blue, hungry and ancient. The circle tightened. Astradir's throat grew dry. "That's not a trial," someone whispered. "That's execution." Ragnar didn't look at her. "You asked for belonging," he said. "This is the price." Fear curled in her stomach, sharp, alive. Good. Fear meant she was still human. The frostwarg snarled, claws carving trenches into frozen soil. The sound vibrated through her ribs. Run. The instinct flashed hot. Instead, Astradir stepped forward. The runes answered. Silver light threaded across her arms, steady and controlled. The wolves inside her stirred, not wild, not panicked, ready. The beast lunged. Astradir moved on instinct. She twisted aside, feeling icy breath slice past her cheek. Snow exploded under her boots as she rolled, coming up low and balanced. The warg turned with terrifying speed. Its jaws snapped inches from her shoulder. She thrust her glowing palm forward. Silver energy burst outward. Not fire, impact. The force staggered the beast, claws skidding across frost. It roared, furious now. Astradir's heartbeat synced with the runes. Listen. The wolves whispered through her bones. She didn't attack blindly this time. She waited, watching the creature's rhythm. Breath, step, tension. The next charge came faster. She sidestepped, grabbing a ridge of frozen fur as momentum carried the warg past her. Using its own weight, she slammed her glowing forearm into its flank. Energy rippled. Ice shattered. The beast stumbled. The circle gasped. Astradir pressed forward, silver light flaring brighter. The wolves surged through her limbs, not overwhelming, but guiding. Strike. Her fist connected with the creature's jaw. The impact thundered. The frostwarg collapsed into the snow, stunned. It struggled, snarling weakly, then stilled. Silence swallowed the ring. Astridir stood over it, chest heaving, runes glowing hot beneath her skin. The beast's eyes flickered, then dimmed. Submission. The wolves inside her settled. Astridir stepped back. The pack stared, not with doubt, with respect. Ragnar entered the ring slowly. His gaze swept over the fallen warg, then returned to her. "You didn't kill it," he said. Astridir shook her head. "It wasn't my enemy." A ripple of approval moved through the warriors. Strength without cruelty. Ragnar's eyes darkened, pride mixed with something deeper. "You fought like Fenrir," he declared. The circle erupted in pounding fists against armor. Acceptance. Astridir's chest tightened, not from exhaustion, from belonging. Ragnar stopped in front of her, close enough that she felt his warmth through the winter air. His voice lowered. "You didn't just pass," he said. "You claimed your place." Her pulse fluttered unexpectedly. "And if I'd failed?" she asked. His gaze held hers. "You wouldn't have," he said simply. Confidence, absolute. For a moment, the storm arrived without warning. One moment, the Fenrir stronghold stood quiet beneath a pale sky. The next, the wind howled like a wounded god. Snow spiraled violently through the air, swallowing the horizon and turning the world into a white abyss. Astridir stood on the outer wall, fingers curled around frozen stone as the gale clawed at her cloak. The wolves inside her stirred uneasily. Something was wrong. Not natural wrong. Ancient wrong. Behind her, boots crunched against ice. Ragnar stepped beside her, his presence steady against the chaos. His dark hair whipped in the wind, eyes scanning the storm with sharp awareness. "This isn't weather," he said. "I know," Astridir replied. "It feels alive." As if answering her, the wind screamed. Shapes moved inside the blizzard, shadows twisting where no shadows should exist. The runes beneath her skin flared hot. "They're here," she whispered. Ragnar's jaw tightened. Inside the walls, now. They descended the stone stairs just as the first scream tore through the stronghold. Warriors rushed into the courtyard, weapons drawn. The storm bled through the gates like smoke, and from it emerged creatures of ice and darkness, winter wraiths. Their forms flickered between solid and spectral, limbs too long, mouths filled with jagged frost. They glided across the ground, freezing everything they touched. The wolves inside Astridir roared. Her runes ignited. Silver light burst from her palms as the first wraith lunged. Energy collided with shadow in a crack of thunder. The creature shattered into shards of glowing frost. More followed. Ragnar moved beside her like a storm given flesh. His blade cut arcs of brutal precision, dispersing wraiths in bursts of frozen mist. Together they carved space in the chaos, instinctively synchronized. Left, right, strike. Astridir felt their rhythm align. Every movement answered his, every breath shared the same urgency. Fear faded beneath adrenaline, and something hotter, trust. A wraith slipped past her guard. Ragnar grabbed her arm, yanking her back as icy claws sliced the air where her throat had been. His body collided with hers, heat crashing through the cold. For a heartbeat, the battle disappeared. Their eyes locked. "You hesitate," he said quietly. "I adapt," she shot back. A ghost of a smile flickered across his lips. "Good," he murmured. "Stay alive." They separated just as another wave descended. Astridir planted her feet, drawing deeper on the wolves. Silver fire surged through her veins, controlled, fierce. She thrust both hands forward. The courtyard exploded in light. A shockwave rippled outward, shattering wraiths mid-strike. Frost dissolved into glittering dust that fell harmlessly to the ground. Silence crashed down. The storm faltered. then receded. The unnatural wind died, leaving only drifting snow and stunned warriors. The courtyard stood scarred, but intact. Astradir swayed. The power drained from her limbs, leaving her breathless. Ragnar was there before she hit the ground, his hands firm on her shoulders. "Easy," he said. "I'm fine," she insisted, though her voice trembled. "You overreached. So did the storm." His grip tightened, not scolding, grounding. His gaze softened as he studied her glowing skin, the fading runes pulsing like a calm heartbeat. "You protected them," he said. Astradia glanced at the warriors watching from the edges of the courtyard. Fear had been replaced with awe. "We protected them," she corrected. Ragnar held her gaze for a long moment. Snow drifted lazily between them, the aftermath strangely quiet. "You fight like the storm," he said. "And you stand in it," she replied. The words hung in the cold air. Something shifted, subtle but undeniable. The wolves inside her hummed softly, recognizing the tension coiling between them. Not danger, connection. Ragnar's thumb brushed her wrist, lingering just enough to send warmth racing beneath her skin. "Careful," he murmured. "Storms leave marks." Astradir didn't pull away. "Maybe," she said. "Some marks are worth keeping." His eyes darkened, heat cutting through winter. For a moment, neither moved. Then a warrior called out, breaking the spell. "The walls are secure." Reality returned. Ragnar stepped back slowly, though his gaze never left hers. "This was a warning," he said. "Something is testing us." Astradir flexed her fingers. The runes glowed faintly, steady. "Then it chose the wrong pack," she answered. A low chuckle rumbled in his chest. "Fenrir doesn't scare easily. Neither do I." The storm clouds parted overhead, revealing a sliver of pale sunlight. Snow glittered across the courtyard like fallen stars. Astradir inhaled deeply. The wolves were calm, the stronghold still stood, and Ragnar remained beside her. Not as savior, not as master, as equal. The winter had made its claim, and she had answered. The quiet after the storm felt wrong, too still. Fenrir warriors moved cautiously along the outer walls, voices hushed as if afraid to wake something sleeping beneath the snow. Astradir stood near the gate, runes faintly glowing under her skin. The wolves inside her were restless, listening, waiting. Ragnar approached with measured steps, eyes scanning the tree line. The storm wasn't an attack, it was a herald. Astradir felt it then, a pressure deep in her chest, like the air had thickened. Her breath shortened. "It's coming," she whispered. The gates shuddered, once, twice, then exploded inward. Splintered wood and iron screamed through the courtyard as a towering mass surged through the smoke. Warriors were thrown aside like leaves. The creature straightened, revealing its full shape. The shadow beast. It stood higher than the wall, its body forged from shifting darkness, threaded with veins of icy light. Horns curled back from a skull-like head, and its eyes burned with hollow silver fire. The wolves inside Astradir roared in recognition. Enemy. The beast exhaled, a wave of black frost that devoured the ground, freezing stone and flesh alike. A warrior screamed as his shield shattered in his hands. "Hold the line!" Ragnar thundered. Fenrir fighters charged, blades flashing. Their strikes passed through Shadowhide, slowing but not stopping the creature. The shadow beast swept a massive limb, sending bodies crashing into the snow. Astradir stepped forward. The runes ignited. Silver light surged through her veins as the wolves' fury answered. Ragnar moved beside her without hesitation. "We hit it together," he said.
She nodded. The beast roared, a sound that rattled bone. Astridir sprinted first, Ragnar at her flank. The creature's gaze locked on her glowing form. It lunged. She slid beneath its sweeping arm, palms blazing. Silver energy slammed into its chest. Ragnar followed, blade cutting through the exposed fissure of light. The impact thundered. The beast staggered. Dark frost exploded outward, throwing them back. Astridir hit the ground hard, breath knocked from her lungs. The wolves snarled, urging her to rise. Pain meant nothing. She stood. The shadow beast towered above them, cracks of silver spreading across its form where they had struck. It howled, wounded, furious. Ragnar wiped blood from his lip. Again, he growled. Astridir's heart hammered in sync with the runes. This time she didn't hold back. She let the wolves surge fully, not wild, but united with her will. Silver fire engulfed her arms. She charged. The beast swung down. Ragnar intercepted, his blade locking against shadow limb. The force shook the courtyard, but he held, muscles straining. "Now!" he shouted. Astridir leapt. Her glowing hands drove into the creature's chest fissure. Energy exploded outward, flooding the beast with blinding light. The wolves' voices merged with her own, a thunderous howl tearing through the air. The shadow beast convulsed. Cracks spiderwebbed across its body. Then it shattered. Darkness collapsed inward, dissolving into harmless frost that drifted to the ground like ash. Silence fell. The courtyard stood wrecked but intact. Warriors stared, breathing hard, eyes wide with disbelief. Astridir's knees buckled. Ragnar caught her before she fell, his arm firm around her waist. The heat of his body ground.
Night fell heavier than usual. The Fenrir stronghold slept beneath a sky veiled in slow-moving clouds, yet Astridir could not rest. The wolves inside her stirred with growing insistence, their presence pressing against her thoughts like distant thunder. Calling. She rose from her furs, the cold floor biting her bare feet. Silver runes shimmered faintly along her skin, pulsing in rhythm with a sound only she could hear. A howl. Not outside. Inside. Astridir stepped into the corridor, breath steady despite the unease tightening her chest. The stronghold was silent. No guards, no voices, only torchlight flickering like nervous spirits. The call grew louder. Follow. She moved through the gates without resistance. The night air wrapped around her, sharp and alive. Snow glowed faintly under moonlight as the forest opened before her. Then Ragnar's voice cut through the stillness. "You're walking towards something ancient." She turned. He stood at the tree line, eyes dark but calm. "I didn't want to wake you," she said. "You didn't," he replied. "They did." He stepped beside her. "You won't walk this alone." The wolves surged in approval. Together they entered the forest. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Silver mist curled around their legs, guiding them toward a clearing Astridir had never seen. At its center stood a monolith of black stone etched with spiraling runes. The wolves roared inside her. Home. Astridir stepped forward, heart hammering. The runes ignited as she approached, casting ghostly light across the clearing. Ragnar stayed close, his presence anchoring her as the air thickened with ancient power. "Touch it," he said softly. She did. The world vanished. Astridir stood beneath a shattered sky, endless tundra stretching in every direction. Massive spectral wolves ran across the horizon, their howls shaking the heavens. One approached, larger than mountains, eyes burning silver. The Wolf King. Its gaze pierced her soul, not cruel, not kind, knowing. You carry our memory, it spoke without words. Astradir's voice trembled. Why me? Because you remember balance. Images flooded her mind, clans rising and falling, wolves guiding warriors, power shared rather than claimed. The origin of the bond was not domination, it was guardianship. The Wolf King stepped closer. Its breath was winter and fire. You are bridge and blade, keeper and voice. Fear flickered. I don't know how, she whispered. You already do. The wolf lowered its head, pressing its forehead to hers. Energy surged, not violent but vast. Astradir felt every wolf spirit align with her heartbeat. Purpose. The vision cracked. Reality rushed back. Astradir collapsed into Ragnar's arms. His grip was firm, steady. I've got you, he said. Her skin glowed brighter than ever before, runes flowing like living silver rivers. The clearing hummed with fading power. He showed me, she breathed. The wolves, they were never weapons. They're guardians, balance keepers. Ragnar's gaze sharpened. And you? I'm meant to carry that balance. He searched her face, not doubting, understanding. That's heavier than any crown, he said. Astradir met his eyes. Then I won't carry it alone. Silence stretched between them, filled with something deeper than words. His thumb brushed her glowing wrist, grounding her racing pulse. You won't, Ragnar said quietly. The wolves inside her settled, calm and unified. The clearing dimmed, runes fading back into stone. Snow began to fall again, soft and ordinary, as if the world exhaled after holding its breath. Astradir stood on unsteady legs. Different, stronger, aware. Ragnar stayed close as they turned back toward the stronghold. The forest no longer felt oppressive. It felt welcoming. You walked with something ancient tonight, he said. I walked with family, she replied. A rare warmth touched his expression. Then Fenrir stands with you. Astradir looked at the distant lights of the stronghold, wolves humming gently in her chest. Not fear, not chaos, harmony. Winter still waited, enemies still stirred, but now she understood what she carried. Not power for conquest, power for balance, and she would defend it with fang, fire, and heart.
The first sign of betrayal came with silence. No wolves sang at dawn. Astradir woke with a jolt, her chest tight as if invisible fingers squeezed her lungs. The spirits inside her stirred uneasily, not afraid, but alert. Wrong. She stepped outside the stronghold into a courtyard thick with tension. Warriors stood in clusters, voices low, hands resting too close to weapons. Ragnar emerged from the hall, already armored. Something happened, she said. His jaw flexed. The Skarn clan envoy never arrived. Astradir's pulse spiked. They were supposed to swear alliance. They did, Ragnar replied darkly, last night, to someone else. Before she could respond, a horn split the air. Once, twice. War call. The gates burst open as a wounded scout staggered in, blood freezing on his beard. They march, he gasped. Skarn and Vargheim, together. A ripple of disbelief tore through the courtyard. Allies, now enemies. The wolves inside Astradir snarled. Treachery. Ragnar's voice cut through the chaos. Positions. Warriors scattered, shields locked, blades drawn. Astradir stepped beside him. They wouldn't unite without a promise. Or leverage, Ragnar said grimly. The ground trembled. Beyond the walls, banners crested the hill, black wolf sigils twisted with scarn crimson, a symbol of unity forged in deception. Astrader felt it then, a fracture, not in the battlefield, in the wolf bond itself. Someone had tampered with the spirits. Her breath hitched. They're trying to divide the wolves. Ragnar turned sharply. How? Astrader closed her eyes. The wolf chorus felt strained, voices clashing like steel. A foreign pulse infected the harmony, a command forcing submission. Control magic. Rage flared hot. "They're enslaving them," she said. Ragnar's expression hardened to stone. "Then we break it." The enemy advanced. Snow exploded beneath pounding boots. War cries split the air. Astrader stepped forward, silver runes blazing across her skin. The wolves answered, not as scattered spirits, as a storm. Spectral shapes erupted around her, howling fury into the battlefield. Fenrir warriors surged with renewed strength, crashing into the enemy line. Steel met steel, claws met bone. Astrader fought like living myth, her movements guided by instinct older than kingdoms. Each strike shattered the invisible chains binding the wolves, but the resistance was strong. At the enemy's center stood a robed figure, hands glowing with corrupted runes. The wolf spirits recoiled with every pulse of his magic. "That's the source," Astrader shouted. Ragnar cut through soldiers beside her. "Go, I'll hold them." Their eyes locked. Trust. She ran. The battlefield blurred into chaos, screams, thunder, snapping jaws. Enemy warriors lunged, but wolves intercepted, tearing paths open. Astrader reached the robed figure just as he unleashed another wave. Pain lanced through her skull. The wolves cried out. "You carry stolen power," the mage hissed. "I carry balance," she replied. She slammed her palm into the snow. Silver runes erupted outward in a shockwave. The corrupted magic shattered like glass. The mage screamed as his symbols burned away. The wolf spirits roared, free. Astrader arose, trembling but unbroken. The battlefield shifted instantly. Fenrir wolves surged with unified fury. Enemy lines faltered. Panic spread. Victory turned inevitable, but betrayal had one final bite. A blade pierced Astrader's side, not from the enemy front, from behind. She gasped, turning to see a Fenrir warrior, eyes glazed with lingering corruption. "I'm sorry," he whispered, before collapsing. The wound burned with poisoned magic. Astrader staggered. Ragnar caught her before she hit the ground. "Stay with me," he growled, fury shaking his voice. She clutched his armor. "They tried to break us from inside." "And failed," he said. "You stopped them." The battlefield quieted. Survivors fled. Wolves prowled victorious but watchful. Astrader's vision blurred, not from pain, from understanding. "This isn't over," she breathed. "They'll keep trying from within." Ragnar pressed his forehead to hers. "Then we stand closer." Her wolves hummed in agreement, not divided, stronger. As healers rushed forward, Astrader looked across the snow, stained with war yet alive with defiance. Betrayal had come, and Fenrir endured, but she knew now, the next strike wouldn't aim at their walls, it would aim at their hearts, and she would be ready.
The night should have brought silence. Instead, it screamed. Astrid jolted awake to a sound no human ear was meant to hear, a layered howl that vibrated through bone and memory. The wolf spirits inside her recoiled, not in fear, but in warning. Intrusion. She shot upright. The air in the chamber shimmered like heated glass. Shadows moved against logic, crawling across the walls as if searching. Something had crossed over. Ragnar burst through the door, blade already drawn. "You feel it?" he demanded. Astrid swung her legs to the floor, silver runes igniting across her skin. "They're inside." Not enemies at the gates, inside reality itself. The ground trembled. A distant scream echoed through the stronghold, cut short, replaced by an animalistic snarl that did not belong to any living creature. They ran. Outside, chaos had taken shape. Warriors clashed with figures made of smoke and bone, spectral beasts tearing through shields as if they were fog. Wolves lunged at the invaders, their ghostly forms colliding with equal force. The sky churned overhead, clouds twisting into a spiraling wound. From it, tendrils of pale light descended like fingers probing the world. "They're forcing the veil open," Astrid breathed. Ragnar's gaze followed the rupture. "Can you close it?" Astrid felt the wolf chorus rising inside her, not panicked, but furious. The Wolf King's presence pulsed beneath her ribs like a war drum. Yes, but not alone. She grabbed Ragnar's wrist. "I need you anchored to me. If I fall—" "You won't," he said. Not reassurance, certainty. They moved toward the epicenter where the veil tore widest. Each step felt heavier, reality resisting their advance. Spirits lunged, jaws snapping with hollow hunger, but wolves intercepted in flashes of silver. Astrid reached the breach. Up close, it was unbearable, a vertical ocean of distorted stars and screaming echoes. Shapes writhed beyond it, pressing against the barrier like prisoners tasting freedom. Her wolves snarled in defiance. Balance must stand. Astrid planted her feet. Runes erupted from her skin, spiraling outward into the snow. Ragnar stood behind her, hands gripping her shoulders, grounding her trembling body. "Now!" he shouted. Astrid thrust her hands toward the rift. Pain exploded through her nerves, not physical, existential. The invading spirits howled in rage as silver energy clashed against pale corruption. The world shook. The breach fought back. Visions slammed into her mind, civilizations erased, wolf spirits chained, worlds drowned in silent hunger. The entity beyond the veil was not invading for conquest, it was starving. Astrid gritted her teeth. Compassion warred with duty. "You don't belong here," she roared into the rift. The wolves surged through her voice, ancient authority layered over mortal will. The invasion faltered. Spectral forms shattered into mist. The tendrils recoiled. The wound in the sky began to close, inch by agonizing inch. But the entity resisted. A final pulse struck Astrid like a hammer. She screamed. Ragnar tightened his hold. "Stay with me." Her vision blurred, wolves flickering, runes destabilizing. The Wolf King's presence rose inside her, immense and steady. "We stand together." Astrid inhaled, not as a woman, not as a vessel, but as a bridge. Silver fire exploded outward. The rift sealed with a thunderclap that knocked warriors to their knees. The invading spirits dissolved into harmless echoes, fading like a nightmare at dawn. Silence fell. Heavy. Sacred. Astrid collapsed, Ragnar catching her before she hit the snow. The wolves inside her settled into exhausted calm. "It's closed," she whispered. "It's closed, and for now," Ragnar said quietly. She looked at the sky, whole again, yet marked by what had happened. "They found us," she said. "They know this world exists." "And now they know," Ragnar replied. "It fights back." Around them, Fenrir warriors stood shaken but alive. Wolves prowled among them, guardians reaffirmed. Astrid leaned into Ragnar's chest, feeling his heartbeat, steady, human, real. Anchor.
"You held me," she murmured. "Always," he answered. The words settled deep. Not promise, truth. Astrid closed her eyes, exhaustion claiming her. The war had expanded beyond steel and blood. Now it was cosmic, and she stood at its center. But she was not alone. The wolves breathed with her. Ragnar held her steady, and somewhere beyond the veil, something ancient remembered her name.
Victory should have brought unity. Instead, it bred suspicion. The Fenrir stronghold woke beneath a sky too clear, too calm, as if the world itself was pretending nothing had happened. But Ostridir felt the fracture the moment she stepped outside. The wolves were restless, not from danger, from doubt. Warriors gathered in tight circles, voices hushed but sharp. Every glance toward her carried weight, awe tangled with unease. She opened the veil. She almost destroyed us. She saved us. The words floated like blades. Ragnar appeared at her side, armor half-fastened. His presence steadied the air, but even he felt the tension. The council hall was overflowing. Representatives from allied clans stood shoulder to shoulder, their banners lining the walls like silent judges. The atmosphere was thick enough to choke on. Ostridir entered with Ragnar beside her. Conversations died instantly. Eyes followed. A gray-bearded chieftain stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of old authority. "You tore the veil," he said bluntly. "I sealed it," Ostridir answered. "You brought the invasion," another leader snapped. "That power is a beacon." The wolves stirred inside her, offended. Ragnar's voice cut in like steel. She prevented annihilation. A murmur rippled through the hall. The graybeard raised a hand. Silence returned. Power that attracts bods and monsters is not protection. It is liability. Ostridir stepped forward. That invasion wasn't drawn to me. It was drawn to imbalance, to forces that have been stirring long before I awakened. "Convenient," someone muttered. The tension sharpened. One faction leaned toward her, warriors who had witnessed the battle firsthand. Another recoiled, leaders who saw only risk. Division was forming in real time. A younger chieftain spoke up, voice cold with calculation. "We cannot allow one vessel to hold power capable of ending clans." Ragnar's hand flexed at his side. "You're suggesting what?" he demanded. "Containment," the chieftain said. The word hit like thunder. Ostridir felt the wolves rise, furious. "You would cage your shield?" Ragnar growled. "We would protect our people," the chieftain replied evenly. The hall erupted into argument. Shouts overlapped, fear, loyalty, ambition colliding. The unity forged through battle was splintering under the weight of uncertainty. Ostridir lifted her voice, and the wolves answered. A low, harmonic howl filled the hall, not loud, but undeniable. The sound vibrated through bone and memory, commanding attention. Silence fell. Ostridir's runes glowed softly, not as a threat, but as truth. "You fear what you do not understand, but I am not your enemy. I stand between this world and what hunts it." Her gaze swept the room. "If you divide now, you hand victory to forces waiting for us to fracture." The graybeard studied her. "You speak like a leader," he said. "I speak like someone who survived the veil." A pause, heavy, measured. Then Ragnar stepped beside her. "Fenrir stands with her," he declared. The statement was not political, it was absolute. The room shifted. Some leaders nodded reluctantly, others remained stiff, calculating. The younger chieftain's jaw tightened. And if her power grows beyond control, Ostradir met her stare. Then I will answer for it, not as your weapon, as your equal. The wolves pulsed in agreement. The graybeard exhaled slowly. For now, he said, we maintain alliance, but understand this, trust must be earned after such events. Ostradir inclined her head. Then watch me earn it. The council dissolved into uneasy acceptance, not unity, but truce. Outside, the cold air felt sharper. Ragnar exhaled through clenched teeth. They're already choosing sides, he said. I know, Ostradir replied softly. He turned to her. That pressure will only grow. She nodded. Then we grow stronger, she said. Not louder, not crueler, stronger. The wolves settled into wary vigilance. Ostradir looked across the stronghold, warriors training, leaders whispering, alliances shifting beneath the surface. The invasion had ended, but its shadow lingered, and shadows, she knew, were where the real wars began. Ragnar's hand brushed hers, grounding, silent, not possession, partnership. Ostradir squeezed back. Whatever storm came next, they would face it, standing, together.
The storm arrived without clouds. Astradir felt it in the wolves first, a rising pressure that rolled through her chest like distant thunder. The stronghold buzzed with unease as runners carried urgent whispers between halls. The clans had gathered again, not for counsel, for decision. Ragnar stood beside her on the high balcony, eyes scanning the courtyard below. Banners snapped in a restless wind, colors clashing like the tempers of the leaders who waited. This is it, he said quietly. Astradir exhaled. They've already chosen sides. Yes, Ragnar replied. Today they choose a future. She descended the stone steps with steady resolve. Every footfall echoed through the hall, wolves humming in her blood, not wild, not angry, ready. The council circle was tighter than before. Leaders stood armed, symbolic but unmistakable. Trust was thin, fear thinner. The gray-bearded chieftain stepped forward. Power like yours reshapes the world, he said. We cannot remain divided while it grows. Another leader cut in. Nor can we gamble our survival on blind faith. Murmurs surged. Astradir raised her voice before the argument could ignite. You fear what I represent, she said, but fear is already tearing us apart. The invasion proved one truth. Alone we fall. Her runes glowed faintly, illuminating the circle. Together, she continued, we stand beyond what hunts us. The young chieftain who once demanded containment stepped forward, blade resting at his side. Words don't command loyalty, he said. Strength does. The challenge hung in the air. Ragnar stiffened, but Astradir lifted a hand. I accept. Gasps rippled through the circle. The duel ground was cleared in seconds. Snow crunched beneath their boots as warriors formed a ring. Wolves prowled at the edges, silent witnesses. The chieftain lunged first, fast, precise. Astradir pivoted, her movements guided by instinct older than steel. Their blades clashed, sparks scattering across white ground. He fought with desperation. She fought with purpose. The wolves surged through her limbs, lending speed without fury. Each strike disarmed aggression rather than feeding it. The duel was not domination, it was proof. With a final twist, Astradir knocked his blade free and held her own at his throat. Silence swallowed the courtyard. She did not press. Instead, she stepped back. You don't need to kneel. Stand with me." The chieftain stared, breathing hard. Then, slowly, he nodded. The wolves howled, not in victory, in unity. The sound rolled through the stronghold like a blessing. Leaders exchanged looks, doubt softening into recognition. The gray beard spoke first. "Strength without tyranny," he said, "power without chains." He knelt. One by one the others followed. Not submission, acknowledgement. Astrader felt the weight settle, not crushing, but immense. Leadership did not crown her with gold, it crowned her with trust. Ragnar stepped beside her, pride and relief flickering in his gaze. "You just united them," he said softly. "We united them," she corrected. Their hands brushed, grounding, steady. Above, the sky brightened, the air felt cleaner, as if the world itself approved of the balance restored. Wolves circled the courtyard, their presence calm and watchful. Astrader looked at the gathered clans, warriors, leaders, survivors of fear. No longer fractured, standing. This is not the end of war, but it is the end of fighting alone. Her voice carried like iron wrapped in velvet. We guard this world together. We face what comes together. The wolves answered with a final unified howl that shook snow from rooftops. Ragnar leaned close, voice low enough only she could hear. "You were born for this." Astrader smiled faintly. "No," she said, "I chose it." And that choice echoed louder than any crown. As the clans rose, banners lifted not in rivalry, but alignment. The stronghold pulsed with new purpose, not fragile peace, but earned unity. Winter still lay ahead, enemies would rise again, but now they would rise to meet them as one. And at the center stood Astrader, guardian, bridge, and leader, her wolves steady, her heart anchored, her future no longer uncertain. The age of division had ended, the age of the wolf crown had begun.